Good morning, everyone. That is a very bright light, isn't it?
It's bright,
Wow.
isn't it?
I thought I'd start off with a little story, actually. This appealed to me. So a chap was lying on his back in a field, watching the clouds passing by, enjoying the shapes they were making. And he's feeling very much at one with nature and with God. And he thought, I'm going to embrace the spiritual moment here that I've got. So he started speaking to God, and he said to God, the fantastic world you've built is fantastic. He said, it's amazing. He said, and the whole concept of how huge it is and how long everything lasts for is amazing to me. He said, how long is 1,000,000 years? And God said, well, in my frame of reference, it's about a minute. He said, wow. He said, and how much is £1,000,000? He said, in my frame of reference, about a penny. He said, God, could I have a penny? And God said, sure, in a minute. So my name is Bridget Cameron. I'm the chief exec of Alpine, which is an interim management company. I was originally asked to speak at this by the lovely Erica here about 7 months ago, and you'd think after all this time I'd have a lovely punchy, pithy story to tell you, but it's such an esoteric subject, it took me a little while to kind of think about where I begin with it. So I thought I'd try and keep it as personal to me as I can and talk to you a bit about some of the things that I've done that are time related, and hope that it is interesting at the very least. So possibly a quick overview about my background. I'm lucky enough to do something that I absolutely love. I fell into it completely by accident, which is a separate funny story I'll tell you individually if you want to know afterwards, about 30 years ago. I've spent the first 15 years of my life doing recruitment in private sector, and after the first sort of 10 years or so, I got involved in helping companies that weren't performing very well to go in and do turnarounds, or to start up businesses for other people under existing ventures. And then about 15 years ago, for reasons that I'll go into later, I decided it was time to do my own thing. And I work now predominantly in the public sector. And the reason that really appeals to me is it gives me the opportunity to see and to offer some help in a very small way into how public sector organisations support the needs of communities. So today, time. We can't touch it, we can't smell it, we can't feel it, we can't taste it, and yet in today's modern world we crave it. It's intangible, there's never enough of it. We can't change it. We have a finite amount of it, and yet we waste so much of it. And we can't create more of it, or can we? You can be on it, out of it, bound by it, your plans are subject to it, and one is always running out of it. You spend it, but you can't get a refund on it. And often we end up being time poor. It costs nothing, and yet it's the single most valuable thing that we have. But we rarely include it as a factor in our plans, apart from expressing regret that there isn't enough of it. It waits for no man or woman. And yet it's freely available to those who make the changes necessary to access it. But we don't use it as our most valuable resource. In my opinion, it's one of our greatest incentives. 13 years ago, when I founded Alpine, I took the opportunity to become utterly selfish about just one thing in my life, my time. Prompted by the fact that my then, God, this is scary, 9-year-old daughter was growing up extremely fast, and if I didn't do something then to make time to spend with her, I'd regret it. So I decided then that the following 6 changes would be made. Number 1, I would determine my own personal priorities and work around them. So things like school days, sports days, appointments, etc., family birthdays, I would make sure that I was there for those. I would make my daughter breakfast and walk her to school. I'd never done it. I was the person that dropped her off at the childminders at 5 in the morning and saw her again at 10 o'clock at night. It was an amazing, huge thing for me to do. I'd work from home on Fridays and I'd be there to collect her from school. That meant instead of her watching her slightly vacant-looking mother hanging around the house at a weekend, trying not to think too much about Monday, I was there to pick her up from school on Friday and we'd go off and we'd do something together. I'd make adequate time for me to have and to enjoy hobbies. I would make time for me to think, really properly think. And I would not allow anything to interfere with the things that were most important to me, so my family and my friends. I made time for them. I didn't let anything get in the way of that. None of this resulted in a drop in my performance at work. This will sound really cliched, but if anything, it enhanced my performance, because I was actually I am truly in the moment when I'm working. I'm not resenting it. I've allocated time to it. And it sounds bizarre to say that I'm allocating time to work, but that was the decision that I made then, and I'm still living that. So I don't resent it interfering in anything else. I found freedom being able to work around what's important, and it's resurrected in me a passion for what I do that I hadn't even realised was lacking. Don't get the idea that I work as a hobby. I still work 40 plus hours a week, but I work it in a time that suits me. Obviously, my daughter's no longer at school, so I filled that space with work, bad me. But I am mindful about the time when I need time. So if I find myself working 3 late nights a week, I won't feel too bad about taking a late start on a Friday or a long weekend. I'm pretty good at spotting when I need time for me and making that time. Throughout civilization, time has preoccupied a lot of people and curious minds, from Aristotle to Einstein. For the Greek physicist Aristotle, I've got too many S's in one sentence, bear with me. For the Greek physicist Aristotle, time is now and of the present. It was linked to change and movement. In short, he believes there is change because there is time, and without time there is no change. I think of this as time as flow. Time is emerging as one of the most critical issues of today's workplace. If we want to make the most use of our employees' skills, talents and aptitudes, we need to be open to time and to change, but to minimise the uncertainty that this brings for our staff. For instance, employers are wising up to the fact that it is no longer necessary for them to be able to see their staff arriving at 8 in the morning and sitting at their desks until 6 in the evening. They're increasingly recognising that flexible working is a viable method of keeping costs low and staff engagement and retention high. Flexible working is more widely available, and there's better recognition of the need for a good work-life balance if employees are to remain engaged and motivated. But unfortunately, practice does not always match this recognition. In Unequal Time 2014, sociologists Gerstle and Clausen documented that what employers perceived as flexibility, staff experienced as a growing crisis of unequal, unpredictable, and uncontrollable hours. Across many sectors, and I don't mean just low-pay retail type jobs, this means post-Fordist work patterns with 0-hour contracts. When applied rigidly, this means that staff are sent home early without pay, are asked to stay late or work weekends at short notice, and might be berated or dismissed for sickness. As the Select Commons Committee discussed recently in Sports Direct, this led to a female member of staff giving birth to her child in the toilets because she was so afraid and economically desperate to ask for time off for fear of losing her job. Now, that may have given great flexibility to the employer, but it shows a fixation with time and not how people can be supported to use it wisely. I enable my staff to have the freedom to choose how they work. We agree outcomes and deliverables, and as long as these are achieved and that customer satisfaction remains high and that they contribute to the team ethos, how they do it is not micromanaged or time-bound by me. At Alpine, we value our staff, and we're innovative about how we demonstrate this. Recruitment, induction and training are always the highest costs for any organisation. Attrition rates at Alpine are virtually zero. Our only resignation in 13 years was 2 years ago. There are a number of reasons for this, but staff have the flexibility to do important, personal things without having to worry about taking time off for trips to the dentist, the doctor, the vet, the paediatrician, whatever it may be. And in return, I get time from them when it's needed, even if they're on holiday, and it's given freely. It's a two-way street, and they tell me, but I suppose I have to, that they're happy to work for a company that has such flexibility, and the reality that the reality and the understanding that they have personal lives away from EC1. This is me using time as a resource. Now, it works, of course, because I'm the leader of the organisation. I genuinely believe in and I live the values of a genuine work-life balance. And I understand that to get the best from my people, I have to give them the most valuable resource I can. And that by treating them as adults, I get real engagement. They understand the need for change when it happens in Alpine, and I get active participation. Dr. Kimball Ramsey of Angela Ruskin University did some biannual tracking of change management during austerity. In 2011, trends showed a focus on cost-cutting and restructure. In 2013, it was culture change, and in 2015, it was again cost-based. She concludes that since the recession, which is a period requiring greater flexibility but also greater trust, managers have chosen a path of form over function and process over people. But this has further diminished the organisation's relationship with their staff. Let's go back to Aristotle's linkage of time and change. One of the biggest, most catastrophic mistakes a manager can make is not prioritising and taking the time to consult and communicate with staff during the change process. But change can be unsettling. It often invokes an emotional rather than a rational response, sometimes resistance, and sometimes downright denial. All of this takes up time. Poor communication results in very much reduced performance and engagement. This can happen with whole organisation culture change or the introduction of a new way of working, such as digital technology. Digital is often seen as a panacea for saving time and money, and some great successes have been achieved by this, such as bookings and payments, but only when they're designed with and for people to improve their online customer journey and their whole customer experience. The result of some digital time savers have been more varied when looking at complex people-based services and processes, such as keeping a vulnerable child or older person safe. Here, solutions offered have been productivity software to map process, to map activity and to map tasks, but it pays very little attention to the emotions and the behaviours of the people experiencing that process or in designing a better outcome for them. One impressive example of a time-saving outcome for people is the introduction of pharmacy robotics in the Whittington Hospital in London. Technology here is used to measure, dispense, and distribute patient medicines to the right wards, which reduces error and saves time on process. But it's how that time is used that's important. So nurses can now spend more contact time with patients because data shows that such direct patient-carer interaction speeds up recovery, drives down cost, and has resulted in higher patient and staff satisfaction levels. This means less time in hospital for the patient, less burnout for the nurses, and a lower bill for the NHS. This shows a strategic understanding of time as an asset. So effective digital public services that save time, save money, and build digital capacity demand the unison of both social and technical aspects to deliver something that people can use, value, and benefit from. Recognising the importance of time as an asset, Francis Booth points out that sometimes it helps to be a bit more selfish and say no, because learning when and how to say no is a way of valuing and managing our time. When we say no to one thing, we are in effect saying yes to something else. So we're prioritising and we're valuing our time. The digital world we live in can sometimes pressure us into making rapid responses. Pausing before responding immediately will always take less time than it does to backtrack. In her book, Digital Distraction, Booth also encourages time out, such as turning off email and social media links for a while, because this clearly signals no to people contacting you as and when they please. And it's a very simple way of getting control over your time. I said at the beginning of this talk that my approach was to be utterly selfish about my time. So on a personal level, I don't make plans for more than 2 weekends a month. I insist on an hour alone of an evening for a cup of tea or a hot bath, and if not a cup of tea, something stronger, depending what kind of day I've had. And it gives me time to think about whatever I need to, and I highly recommend baths as decision makers. They're fabulous. I try to restrict my late evenings at work to no more than 2 a week with varying success. and I devote time to the things that I enjoy doing, and I give them equal precedence to work. This keeps me sane, although some may argue that. I believe it's the essence of getting the most from time and achieving a healthy work-life balance. I'm going to leave you with a quote from the great Albert Einstein. The only reason for time is that everything doesn't happen at once. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.